Hey everybody, happy Thanksgiving. It's Eric alongside Ride, live here to talk about Michigan State's impressive victory over the North Carolina Tar Heels in Fort Myers, Florida. You'll see the link below to vote on whether you think MSU kept Caleb Wilson in the gutter. Also, go to slido.com where you can enter in just to use the hashtag TIFNOTS, TFFINOTS. Then you can participate in the poll. We'll have that up. And then, of course, who you think is the player of the game. Drop in the comments where you're from. You guys are already commenting even before we started the live stream. So I'm pretty impressed. Thanks. Nice. I'm glad you're joining us. So thanks again, of course, for joining us. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving with friends and family. And if you didn't, hopefully you have a nice time here with us on the post game show. So the win over North Carolina certainly gets the bad taste out of your mouth from the Lions game earlier in the day. So as a Spartan fan, it's a fun game to watch. Very competitive game for the first half with high level athletes. You really saw that on display right from the start with Cone Carr and Caleb Wilson showing off. Tar Heels went on an 8-0 run and it kind of looked a little shaky for Michigan State. They kind of looked like they had MSU figured out. And then the Spartans really applied with just a 15-0 run. And that was sort of the game. I mean, they kind of kept it within striking distance, I suppose you'd say, but they never got under 3 after a little ways into this first half. Fierce. That's right. Just never got rattled. UNC's offensive attack never got going again. They only scored 58 points for the game. I mean, they scored 58 points twice in the second half this season, once against Kansas. So really impressive defensive effort for Michigan State. So now Michigan State heads to the Big Ten play on Tuesday at 7-0 with wins over Kentucky, Arkansas, North Carolina. Not too bad. And probably the most impressive non-conference victories I can remember for Michigan State before the start of the season, really. And I think the last thing I want to say before I let you kind of get in here, Rod, is really cool environments at Fort Myers. It was a small gym, but it was really gauged. I mean, there were clearly fans from both teams there. Obviously, Michigan State fans had more to cheer about, but a really neat atmosphere. I mean, after all these other tournaments you're watching, certainly ones out of Vegas, it was like no engagement from the fans. And so it was just a different environment, which is kind of cool. I guess it certainly helped that it was Michigan State was winning, but anyway, I like that sort of aspect of it as well.
Absolutely. That environment is what people talk about when they all this week have been taking shots at and complaining about the players era. I'm not even going to call it a tournament because it's not really a tournament.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
In any event, that's what they're talking about. That's the kind of atmosphere you have at Maui. Now, granted, if you're talking the full scope of MTEs that used to be played during this week,
multi-tournament events for those.
Many of them don't have great turnouts, don't have atmospheres like this. That's true. That's fair. But the best ones, the ones people talked about and are upset about losing, Maui, in recent years, Battle for Atlantis, any event that's played in Florida where you've got northern schools involved,
right? Yeah.
This is what they're talking, is what people who don't want to see that stuff disappear are talking about. It is markedly different than what we saw in Las Vegas. There is no debate about that. And North Carolina, it looked to me, had a healthy turnout, but it was kind of what I figured. Michigan State, we know the fan base travels extremely well. And if you give it the excuse of a game in Florida in November, it's going to travel really well. And it did. And that's besides the fact that I personally know, and I'm sure many of our listeners personally know, lots of people that either are Spartans that live in the Fort Myers area or live there part-time, are snowbirds. And there are lots of them. In fact, I know of at least one very, very, very influential booster who has a home there. And he might have had a lot of Michigan State people over the last couple of days. Maybe.
I bet so. Maybe an event, a fundraising event, perhaps.
I'm not guessing at that. I don't know if it was a fundraiser, but yeah, it was. Name a big name from think of a big name from Michigan State, and they were there. Anyway, so totally agree about the atmosphere. That's what you want. That's the ideal. And yeah, it's true. I mean, we could do a whole episode on this week and the reactions to the players era thing. because it has been something to behold. You had a lot of what passes for a national college basketball media, not all, like our friend Mike DeCourcy, not one of them, but many of them. These guys were, the way they were defending this thing, it came across almost like just barely the side of Baghdad Bob. It was like, or people who are clearly in on the payroll of the Qatari government, for example. It was ludicrous the extent to which some of these morons debased themselves publicly in trying to justify the dumber aspects of this players era thing. But anyway, this event gives you a crystal clear example of what the people who say, I miss the way it was, are talking about. And that is still true, even if you can go down the line and say, well, 75% of these MTEs don't have that. Who cares? We're talking about the 25% that do. That's what people are upset about losing. And we're losing them, believe it. So anyway, off the soapbox and back to the important part, the game. This is a real team. Capital R, capital T. Michigan State, that is.
Right, yeah.
They have demonstrated. I mean, we've been talking about it lately, how accelerated the development, the connectedness is with this team. Well, they proved it again. And this is the best team they've played yet, in my opinion. I think their front court is clearly another level up from Arkansas's, and they're a little more mature than Arkansas is. I think by March, Arkansas might end up being a better team. We'll see, because there's a lot of horsepower on that team. But right now, North Carolina is clear-cut a better team than Kentucky, if for no other reason than they have an actual point guard at the moment. I'd say they have two of them. So this is the best opponent they've played. And yet, Michigan State handled business extremely impressively. I think I read from the point that North Carolina had that 7-point margin, which was fairly, I don't know, maybe 9 minutes left in the half.
I was going to say 10. Like it seemed midway through the first half.
Yeah, somewhere around there. From that point, Michigan State outscored them by 23 points. Yeah. It was like 59-36, something like that.
Yeah.
Just put the hammer down. That is incredibly impressive. You can cite any number of things that went very well for Michigan State, but this would be my list. It starts, as it usually does at Michigan State, with the point guard. And I don't know how many of you watched the brief post-game show that Fox had. The studio analyst is Casey Jacobson, who is a great player at Stanford. He's a horrible analyst typically.
He finally admitted it, right? That they might be okay.
He is one of the worst guys in a job of that profile. He's terrible. But he got one thing. Okay. He got one thing absolutely right. At least one. He was talking about Jeremy Fears, and he said, he's probably not going to be a guy that the NBA covets. I'm paraphrasing. That's what he said. Yeah. And he's right about that. It's because of Jeremy's size, and that he hasn't yet proven to be a great shooter by NBA standards. But he said, if you're talking about a college basketball player, which is what we're supposed to be focused on mostly, since it is college basketball that's the subject of all of this, he said, it's probably time to start talking about him in top 10, top 15 players, not just point guards, players in the college game right now. And I think he's right. We talked in the preseason how, I've been very bullish on Jeremy Fears since the moment they got a commitment from him. Before that, actually, when they were recruiting him. But even I am guilty, I think, of underrating him coming into this season. Because right now, who in the Big Ten? And the Big Ten's got a boatload of great point guards, a bunch of them. Who would you take objectively, trying to be as objective as you can, over Jeremy Fears in terms of the totality of their games? Braden Smith, one answer, fine. I'm not going to dispute that. Although, when I talk about the totality of games, it's starting to get closer because Braden Smith doesn't come close to guarding people the way Jeremy Fears does. But still, that's fine. I'm not going to debate that one. You give him an edge because he's so good offensively.
Yeah.
The only other guy that is even in the discussion is Bruce Thornton. And I'm a big Bruce Thornton fan. But you know what? There's one
Doesn't
major league difference between those two guys. For as much as I like Bruce Thornton, he doesn't win.
Right.
His teams have not won. And I don't blame him entirely for that. But, you know, it's like when you're the quarterback of a football team. It kind of, whether you like it or not, it's on you. And Jeremy Fears' teams do nothing but win. Always. Going back to high school, it's the reason he was a starter on Team USA over some guys that were ranked ahead of him. He wins.
Yeah.
And so right now, is he the second best point guard in the Big Ten? My vote would be yes at the moment. Is he the second best point guard in America? Might be. I mean, the season he is having, just the way he controls games, you see a game like today, 19 points, a career high.
Yep.
Just
8 of 10
big,
from the field.
big shot after big shot after big shot. Somehow, the first time this year, he hasn't had at least 9 assists in a game. He finished with 7. So I guess he was slacking a little bit. But ran that team, defended extremely well. I mean, what else can you ask for? And he is a leader with a capital L. He is the emotional fulcrum of that team. He gives them that kind of presence that I think very, very few teams anywhere have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That kind of guy on your team. It's huge. So that's where I start. I start with that. They've got a real quarterback, a real leader, and almost any other team in the country will not be able to match the totality of what he gives Michigan State. So you start with that.
I would also add to that if I'm the Big Ten and looking at him, that kid's a sophomore. That is not good news.
Yeah, and much like Braden Smith, not a guy that you can imagine the NBA taking a flyer on.
Right.
You know, I mean, anything can happen, but Jeremy Fears is a very smart guy. And I think he's going to be in line to do extremely well financially for staying in the college game.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you never say never to anything these days, but I think the odds of him not being a 4-year guy are pretty remote right now. Right. That's how I would assess it, because there are things that are out of his control. Now, if maybe somehow he came back and as a junior, all of a sudden he's a 40% plus 3-point shooter on heavy volume. Okay, sure. Maybe. But short of that, it's trouble for the Big Ten. Big trouble.
Yeah.
So start with Jeremy Fears. Then you talk about the physicality and the toughness this team plays with. And look, they've played 2 teams already in Arkansas and Kentucky that I think fancied themselves physical, tough teams. I think Arkansas kind of was. Kentucky really shrunk from it when push came to shove. They have guys that look good in an airport, but they didn't play that way. That's why they got punked.
Yeah.
North Carolina is real. I mean, they're physical and they're huge. I looked at this on KenPom. KenPom has a number that gives you the average height of the roster. Michigan State is the 19th tallest team in the country. You know, we've talked about a conscious effort to get bigger. Well, that's proof that they've done it. North Carolina's 4th.
Yeah.
4th biggest team in the country. So that's real. And they played that way. I thought they tried to play physically. They definitely gave it an effort to try and hang in there with Michigan State in that regard. They just couldn't. Michigan State was just tougher. As I go the old George Perlis line, the tougher team won. Yeah. Kind of true today. But that was a test, man. That was a really, really good test for Michigan State to face a team like that. But Michigan State's toughness, energy, effort levels, all of that shine through. Once again, we come back to defense. North Carolina, they kept flashing that stat. I'm sure any of you that saw the broadcast know what I'm talking about. At least early in the second half, the play-by-play guy was couldn't stop talking about it. How North Carolina this year, I think they played 6 games, and I believe in 5 of them they'd scored 50 or more in the second half. Well, what did they post today? Let's take a look at that box score. Oh, 30 points.
Yeah, right.
In the second half. Not 50, 30. A team that's been playing very well offensively was held to 38% shooting from the floor, 17% from 3. We've been talking about how connected Michigan State is defensively. And once again, we see another indication of it against a high-level opponent. I cannot think, and I hope I'm not jinxing anything. I'm knocking on wood as I'm saying this, but I can't think of a Michigan State team ever that I have seen that was this good this early on defense.
Yeah.
The Cleves teams were not this good defensively, in my opinion, in late November. Now, that doesn't win you anything. You got to be as good or better than those teams were defensively in March for it to really matter.
Obviously,
but for this point in the year, I've never seen it. You could argue that, the 2017-18 team with Miles and Jaron and those guys, that group put up some really impressive defensive numbers, but I don't think they played the schedule. They played a very good Duke team in the Champions Classic, but I don't have a memory of them. They played Notre Dame, who was hyped, who was supposed to be good, and beat the hell out of them, and that was not in the end. That was not a good Notre Dame team. Like that MSU team didn't play this caliber of opponent, and I also think a lot of what that team did was it certainly wasn't gimmicky, but they had Jaren Jackson, who was a freak and could even make great defensive plays when he made horrible defensive plays, if you get my meaning. He'd get blown by because his closeout was poor, and he had so much length he could still recover and block a shot or alter it. This team doesn't have anybody quite like that. They are just sounder.
Yeah.
I mean, it is impressive to watch. That was at times a stifling defensive effort. You look, and we'll come back to this, I'm sure, at a different point in the discussion here. But Caleb Wilson, you could see enough in that game. He is every bit the player that he is hyped to be. He's going to be likely a top 5 draft pick.
Yeah, you can see why.
Yeah. 6 for 13 from the floor. That's getting it done. That is getting it done. And Michigan, it's not even just that. It's the shots that he wasn't able to get because of how well Michigan State guarded him. Now, he made some plays. He made some spectacular plays. Why? Because he's a great talent. And guys like that will, even if you're playing your ass off defensively, they will get theirs at times because they're just too gifted. And there were some moments like that, but by and large, man, Carson Cooper, take a bow.
I feel like that you really saw that after the first 5 minutes of sort of shock and awe, similar to how Carr, I think, really surprised him at his ability to get to the rim.
Yep.
And just his speed. Then North Carolina sort of figured it out, and then Carr didn't do as much. Certainly didn't have the impact he did early. I thought the same thing with Wilson. Like once Michigan State kind of figured out, once he comes in, Kohler comes over, kind of walls him off, and then until he started trying to force stuff in the second half, and then he just was, turn the ball over and having all kinds of problems. Because you can't stop that guy one-on-one. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's so good, but they definitely figured him out in defensively, like what he was doing, what he could do. Because I suppose you just can't scout and have someone on the scout team who's like that, right? I mean, you can never really simulate that.
You can't. That's absolutely right. And that's what I mean. Like a guy that's that gifted, even if you're playing great defense against him, there are gonna be moments where he is just going to be able to do. I talk about 95th percentile players. There are going to be moments where a guy like that just makes a play that nobody else on that floor can make and that nobody on that floor can stop. And there were a couple of those, but they didn't happen much after those first 5-6 minutes. You're right about that. He had one little stretch in the second half where he kind of got it going for 2 or 3 possessions. The one where he just kind of plastic manned a dunk. He got a little bit of position on Carson, but it didn't. When I was watching it unfold, I was shocked that he dunked it because it didn't look like he had any chance to do it. And he's capable of he has those moments.
Yes.
Right.
And that's where you didn't have Kohler come over and from the weak side and stop.
He was a little late
earlier. And I think that was the difference.
Jackson was just a little late. You're right. But for the most part, they weren't late. They walled him up.
Sure.
They made it very tough on him. And a lot of times he just didn't even have a shot. You can't even just measure it by the shooting percentage because North Carolina wanted to go to him. They just couldn't do it. If you haven't seen North Carolina play before today, something that's a very integral part of their team, of their offensive attack, is their 2 big combination between Wilson and the Vesser kid.
Vesser.
Yeah. He's a hell of a passer. What did he have in this game? Vesser had no assists.
No.
That might be the only time this year that happens. They are a great 2-man combination. But from what I saw, it was Michigan State that had the better big-to-big passing in this game. So anyway, the defense, huge part of why we saw this win and why we are seeing what we're seeing from this team. So I think it's point guard, toughness, and effort level, motor, how hard they play and the toughness they play with. And then how high a level they are executing that on the defensive end right now. You put all those things together, and I'm telling you, that alone, you're gonna go a long way on that. Now, if you add in you're shooting well, jumpers, I thought Michigan State, something I did want to mention, and this comes to mind because you have seen, going back to that players era thing, you have seen an immense amount of hype around the University of Michigan the last few days. Yeah. And it's understandable because they went in and beat 3 teams that are purportedly good. I'm only certain that one of them is going to be Gonzaga. I think will be a good team in the end. Not as good as maybe people thought they were. But the other 2 are maybes for me at this point. We don't know. But look, regardless, Michigan just blasted all 3 of them into the sun. I mean, it was ridiculous. I can't think of a 3-day performance in an event like that where somebody just rolled up 3 in a row like that, where they just 40-point wins every night. Yeah. Very impressive. That's great. But you and I were discussing this during the Gonzaga game a little bit last night via text, and and this was true for Auburn as well. I maintain that for as well as Michigan played, and they played very, very well, and I'm just focused on what they do defensively because that's actually been the one consistent thing about that team this year. They've defended extremely well. What they haven't done up until this week is shot the ball well at all or avoided hemorrhaging 20-plus turnovers. They did that this weekend, and that's why those were 40-point wins because they were great at both ends. Yeah. But for as good as Michigan is defensively, and they're huge, they're like Carolina. I don't even know if they might even be a little bigger overall. I'd have to look. But they give you shots. Carolina in this game, there were holes in that defense. Where were the holes? They were in the mid-range.
Yep.
Gonzaga, for a very brief period in that game last night, late in the first half, their big kid, Huff, who's a good player, he's a guy Michigan State recruited when he was in high school, had like maybe 3 possessions in a row where he hit like 8-foot floaters. And it felt to me like, okay, they're finally going to get back into this game because that's where the hole is. Michigan is a totally different defensive approach and philosophy than Michigan State. Michigan's defensive philosophy is we are going to take away with our size anything around the rim, and we're going to pressure you on the 3-point line. If you are willing to take mid-range shots, we're going to give them to you because we think we'll win that war on a percentage basis. It's not crazy thinking. It's not how Michigan State does it. But the point is those shots are there. If you hit those shots, well, either you're just going to beat them because you're hitting those shots, or you're going to force them to do something different defensively. North Carolina played that way today. Michigan State absolutely killed them in the mid-range. Carson Cooper killed them in the mid-range. Jeremy Fears killed them in the mid-range. We know that a guy like Jackson Kohler, he didn't do it as much today, but he's capable of doing that.
Yeah.
On and on we go. If you are one of the poor unfortunates who woke up this morning depressed or terrified by what the University of Michigan did over the last 3 days, what you saw this afternoon should, if you're paying attention, leave you feeling much better. Because the way Michigan State played this game is very similar to the way they would have to attack a defense playing the way the University of Michigan is, at least right now. And again, same kind of size, all that stuff. MSU took care of business. So that was really encouraging to me, the way that they attacked North Carolina and made North Carolina pay. The other thing that was encouraging too, and again, this is true, I think Michigan's size just completely overwhelmed those teams they played. None of them, and Gonzaga is always a really good offensive team. They looked rattled, absolutely rattled in that game. They never looked comfortable. And part of it, I think, is actually a function, not the whole thing, but part of it is a function of those one-day turnarounds. They had no time to prep. When you are seeing a team that is so extreme, and it doesn't just have to be size, it could be a team that presses you 94 feet for the whole game, or a team like Syracuse under Boeheim that throws a funky matchup zone at you that you never see any other time. One-day preps where you don't have any time to prepare, really, that's tough. And I think that was part of it in those games. But one thing you have to do is you have to pick your spots in terms of really putting pressure on them, meaning trying to take the ball to the rim against all that size. You have to have the right guys doing it. Michigan State did that. You talked about Cohen Carr's start to that game. Unbelievable. The way he just went at them. And I thought the right guys, for the most part, Cam Ward, wore them out. Carson Cooper did work. The right guys were doing that. You didn't have a lot of situations where, Jeremy, for example, was just trying to get to the rim and being bullheaded about it and getting a shot turned back consistently. That was the difference between the way Michigan State attacked North Carolina and a Gonzaga or an Auburn tried to play Michigan. And so if you're facing a team like that, I think that's what you have to do. Yeah, you got to put pressure on them, be aggressive, take the ball to the hole at times. It's got to be the right guys. Cohen Carr can make a play against that. Jeremy Fears, maybe not. So all really, really good stuff on a team basis. I could not be happier with where this team is right now. And I'll say something else before I turn it back to you. I'm pretty sure it's been decided now. To me, the Big Ten is clear-cut the best league in the country. There are people that will tell you it's the Big 12. They're wrong. It's the Big Ten. And especially it's true at the top. You now have 3 teams in Purdue, Michigan, and Michigan State whose resumes, they're not going to be ranked 1, 2, 3 nationally, but maybe they should be.
Yeah.
Because I've seen pretty much everybody now who's at the top end of this sport. And I haven't seen 3 teams that look better than those 3. That's not even including, although I don't think Illinois, they don't have quite the resume of the other 3. They could be a very good team. Indiana, we'll see. I'm not yet a believer there entirely, but the top 4, if I include Illinois in that group, forget about it. This is starting to feel a little bit to me like last year's SEC. At the top, at least, where remember for everybody was like, Auburn's a national title contender, Florida's a national title contender,
Alabama's
a national title contender, Kentucky maybe a national title contender. I mean, it went. We saw a good Ole Miss team in the Sweet 16 that was a total afterthought in that league, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of how it's starting to feel to me. Because what Michigan State is doing, the other 2, fine. They're great. Purdue and Michigan playing very well. They've had some huge moments, both of them very impressive. But Michigan State's there too. I mean, they've taken care of business against 3 top 25 teams, 2 historically all-time great programs. And the last two, they blasted. Arkansas was tight, but this is a vintage Tom Izzo team. That's how it's shaping up to me.
Yeah.
Saying that, and you believe that to be the case, well, that's a national title contender.
Yeah. Well, let's go through some individual performances. We already talked about Jeremy. I think someone mentioned on here. It was Xandar's 06. Just talk about how Jeremy really got into. You could really see that he was bothering UNC, especially by the second half.
Yeah,
just from his talking, his gamesmanship, all the stuff that just going to make him super annoying for other teams. And then, as you mentioned, emotional leader, he just really was bothering them a lot. And you could just, like, he got fouled going in the one time in the second half, and he has, his arms are up, like, clearly it was that there was a lot of frustration in North Carolina that he had to sort of make sure that there was no technical fouls called or anything that. Because
that's right.
Yeah. So
that's where he may be maturing.
Yeah.
He's got to learn to be the guy. It's fine to instigate that stuff. Just don't get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's just go through some other players. So Kohler, another double, blah, blah. 10 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. No free throw attempts, 4 offensive rebounds to go with his 7 defensive rebounds, a couple assists, a couple turnovers, a block, played 32 minutes. I mean, I don't know what more you can say. He is steady.
I hate being critical on a day when you have a double-double and it's kind of ho-hum, but
yeah,
Jackson could have had an even better game. The team as a whole, but Jackson was probably, at least in the number of them, the biggest offender. The team had real problems finishing at the rim in the first half.
Yes.
Jackson could have easily had 2 or 3 more field goals in this game.
Right.
The shots he missed were right there. I mean, again, North Carolina's got a lot of length. I'll buy that length sometimes puts ghosts in your head, so to speak. But but he was really good. Could have been even better.
Well, and I think in contrast to that, we've talked about this. I think you mentioned this last show. Cam Ward finishes with 11 points. He's 4-7 from the field, 3 for 4 from line, which is good for him. I mean, he's getting that lined up a little bit better. Only 2 rebounds, 1 offensive, but just played 16 minutes, had a block as well. But that's a guy that is under the basket and he's shooting from 2-3 feet. He's not short arming them.
You got it.
He's right. He is reliably put it in, and he is, as Carson Dempsey just mentioned, he's made for MSU. I mean, his game is right. I mean, we talked about like Antonio Smith. I mean, he's a guy who scraps on the scraps. He's got some size. He's, for a freshman, he can compete against all these guys and can score from close range. And I mean, you and I know that probably next year, I wouldn't be surprised we see by the end of this year, you start seeing him start unloading a little bit from a little bit of range too. And because we know he's got that in his game as well.
Yes, I agree with you. And it's going to come, the game away from the rim, out on the floor. But at the basket, I mean, look, right now, I think I may have said this here before, but I think already he's shown me enough to believe he is the best pure low post player they've had since Nick Ward. And the advantage is I don't think he struggles the way Nick did passing out of traffic, out of doubles. Mm-hmm. They're not throwing doubles at him nearly the way they did at Nick Ward, but he is just, I didn't know he had that at this level.
Yeah.
Right now, until we started the Arkansas game was really the first time we saw it.
Right.
And ever since, I'm finding myself, I go back on this stuff a long way. I think about for years the way I would just be pleading with them to get the ball to Andre Hudson more on the block.
Yeah.
Because he was so good as kind of a technician down there that there were times he couldn't be stopped. And I just never felt Michigan State went that route enough. I'm starting to get there with Cam Ward.
And I don't think that he's part of the game.
And feed him, because
He's not even. That's not even part of his game right now. He's just cutting to the basket or picking up some.
But
loose
there
balls.
were moments
we know
in
it's
this
there.
game. There actually was
Yeah.
one great possession where they did it. They got on the ball and he just banged and banged and banged and then scored.
That's right. There was that one. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. He's got that. If anything, I want to see them go to it more, because if you can do that against this opponent, you can do it against anybody.
Yeah.
There aren't going to be the fourth biggest team in the country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. And they're North Carolina. So, they're well coached. They're disciplined, all that stuff. They still couldn't stop him. Yeah. It's really, really, really impressive stuff from him. I mean, Michigan State, we talked about this during the recruitment. They were in on a lot of guys who fit kind of that mold, or a few of them at least. There was a Sizely kid who ended up at Indiana. There were a few others, but there was a point in that AAU season where it became clear that even though Cam Ward wasn't the highest ranked guy on the board, that he was the guy they prioritized.
Yeah.
And man, can you see why? I agree with that listener. Taylor, born to play at Michigan State. The totality of it, his game, his skills, his approach, and his mindset. You see how sometimes guys get to Michigan State and they need to learn the intensity that they need to play with to be part of this program, right? That happens frequently.
Yeah.
Wasn't the case with Cam Ward. He was born ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he didn't win two state championships in the all-time leading scorer of Maryland history, high school basketball, for nothing. I mean, you can definitely see that he's got
exactly right
the skill and everything that, Michigan State wants. So let's talk about Carson Cooper. Fantastic job defensively. I think it's easy and I think, we don't ever think that Carson's a guy we need a whole lot of offense from, but this is again a game where, as you mentioned, he was what a jump he's made, and just confidence with his shot from the mid range, just from last year. Even, I mean, finishes at 14 points, 6 of 10 from the field, should have been 7 of 10, except for that crazy dunk.
That's right. Yeah.
He launched, probably hit the ceiling, hit both his free throws, thanks to a lane violation, 6 rebounds, 1 offensive assist, bunch of turnovers, but that's a lot of the interior passing.
That's the only knock.
Yeah.
4 turnovers. And I will say this, one thing that did bother me a little bit, and this is something that you're going to hope that Michigan State cleans up before they get into the Big Ten schedule, and you're facing a Michigan and Illinois, teams with length, a Purdue, teams with length. I thought they too frequently had guys picking up their dribble a long way from the rim and getting themselves in rough situations because of it.
Yeah.
They would get the movement. I thought overall, offensively, I have no complaints. But there were points in that game where I didn't think that the movement was good enough. They would get kind of not stagnant in the way we usually talk about it, but just weirder situations, like guys making poor decisions to not keep the dribble alive and then ending up in a very bad spot. And Carson's turnovers, some of those 4 at least, were a result of that.
Yeah.
So that was unfortunate, but man, that's the only blemish. Everything else, this version of Carson Cooper is a really, really, really good Big Ten player. I'm going to say something else that I'm going to guess most people haven't really thought that much about, but I 100% believe it to be true. Carson Cooper has a chance to play in the NBA. I'm not saying he's going to be drafted.
Okay.
Although I don't rule that out either. You never know. How does he finish this season? But I wouldn't bet on that. But when you are every bit of 6'11", you're as strong as he is, and you are as athletic as he is, he moves his feet well enough that he could play an NBA post spot, I think.
Sure.
He has the potential for that. And now you're adding in these other layers. He hits his free throws. He's now showing some range. He can do different things offensively. I'll say it at this point. I would not be surprised at all to see him on a two-way deal, maybe even next year. But he's going to have a chance because he is such a good athlete at his size. And who would have dreamt that 4 years ago?
Yeah, well, that's true. Probably not even him. I mean, he was projected redshirting, right? And then couldn't even redshirt him.
But this is why, I mean, the way if you're a big man who wants to play professionally,
mm-hmm.
and Michigan State is recruiting you, you really need to give that serious thought, because they're going to force you to do the things that NBA teams want you to do.
Right.
That's simple.
Yeah.
And if they're recruiting you, it also means that they believe you have the potential to do those things. That's why Carson Cooper, kind of came out of the blue, but then you started looking at the highlights and you started looking at tape and his physical tools, and it made complete sense to me once we could see that. We're like, oh, this guy's 6'11" and he can move. Of course Michigan State's interested. Now, who cares if he's on the IMGB team or he was, only a decent player at Jackson Northwest before that? You could see it. And now we are seeing what happens when you're in a program like this that challenges you and forces you to do those things. Doesn't let you just sit back and drop coverage and shack every ball screen and all that garbage.
Right.
Make you play, really play. And now you see what Carson Cooper's become and where he is. It's something else.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. Nudge Printing's on. Gabe's giving away $10 for whoever wants it. So it's there for you in the chats. So check it out. So Cone Carr, 8 points, 4-10 from the field. Yeah, misses 1-3. No free throws. 4 rebounds, 2 of them offensive. Had a bunch of fouls, despite me saying that he never fouls. Had a block and a steal. 36 minutes, so he played almost the entire game. And I think, we'll go through the minutes here, in which I think is a reflection really of the size of North Carolina and the sort of the lineups I think Michigan State was in some ways forced or felt compelled to play in order to keep up with them. So anyway, great game. I thought he played within himself and he wasn't forcing. We'll talk maybe more about him in the keys when we get to that point. But anyway, I thought a good game for him.
Let's turn to it when we get to the keys. We'll save it for that because I do have some thoughts here. But
sure,
he did. Look, one thing I will say at this point, I thought defensively he was really important, really important.
Yeah,
They needed that length on the perimeter, and he was a factor.
Yeah. Well, and that just brings me to Trey Fort, who just finished with that 1-3. He hit that 1-3, was 1 of 2, missed his other 5 shots. A lot of force, not kind of good shots. I think most of those I didn't feel. 3 assists, no turnovers. Played 21 minutes, had a steal, had a rebound. But I think what Trey is, and he played a lot of minutes, and at the 2. And I think it was largely a reflection just because his size was able to kind of hang defensively with North Carolina, just cause a little more problems. And his athleticism, I suppose, too, to some extent, is why he stayed on the floor a little more, even though it was offensively he was rough.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier that first half, Michigan State left a lot of points on the table by not finishing plays at the rim. Jackson had more of them, but his were at least contested or semi-contested. The most egregious one was Trey Fort made an unbelievable move to get himself right at the rim and then short-armed a layup.
Yeah.
That was so frustrating. But here's the thing. He had 2 very big plays. One was right out of the chute. He hit the first points of the game on a 3. And you can overplay that, but I do think when you are playing a high-level opponent, it does matter that you get yourself settled into the game quickly. I go back to those Michigan games. The biggest problem I think those teams had was that Michigan came out like a house on fire, and those teams found themselves down double digits in the blink of an eye, and it just snowballed on them. So if you can get something established early, that's helpful. Let you settle into the game. Trey gave them that with that 3. The other thing he did, he made one spectacular. You mentioned the 3 assists. One of them was spectacular. He took the ball to the rim, and again, he's a really good athlete, and then dropped it off. Was either Cooper or Ward, I can't remember which, at the rim for a layup. But it was just a really impressive play and showed great feel, because with Trey, you kind of feel like he has this mentality, like you would have expected him to try to score it himself. And he didn't. He instead made a really intelligent, good play to get an easy basket for a teammate. I was really impressed with that. And I thought he held up defensively.
No, I think he was. I think he's gotten better.
Minutes. So he contributed. You want to see more in terms of the scoring, but I'm okay with his floor game.
Yeah, I mean, if he'd had those offensive numbers and wasn't playing the defense, he wouldn't have been on the floor nearly as much. So that was, I mean, that's a reflection of what they needed from him. And that brings us to the other two, Kurt Tang, who I thought had a pretty good game. I mean, he was 3 for 4, finished with 6 points, Mitch has 1-3, had 3 rebounds, an assist, and just played 13 minutes. So he's pretty active out there. I think, the reason they probably went with Ford over Kerr is just a little bit the size and athleticism, I think, with North Carolina.
Yeah.
They're both sort of given the same amount of offense.
What those things mean for you defensively. I agree. But you know what? That was a very mature offensive game for Kerr.
Yeah. He didn't force stuff. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The stuff he did, the 3 baskets he made were all really smart, intelligent plays where he could have jacked a 3 on 1 or 2 of them, didn't, got himself into a nice open mid-range and drained it. So pretty had 3 rebounds too. Always take that from a guard. So again, I think the combination of guys at the 2, no, they weren't spectacular, but they gave Michigan State something. They are giving Michigan State something collectively.
Yeah. Yeah, Gabe's offering to make a Tifnots logo from behind my mobile studio here, my away from home studio, which would be great. I could use one. So let's talk about a few other players. Jordan Scott didn't score. He's 0 for 2 from the field. He passed with 3. I think he had an opportunity. Just played 3 minutes. He was barely in. McCullough just played a couple minutes. Just gave a little brief spell in the first half. And I don't think there's much more to say about those guys. I mean, they're fine. And then Divine Ugachukwu played 12 minutes, hit a 3, that 1-3 in the corner, which this is a huge momentum 3 during that run where I don't know if that pushed out to 8-0 run or if that was in the second 5-0 run after the 8-0. I can't remember. But very impressive. Had a rebound as well. A couple, had no assists and a couple turnovers and a block. So he's showing off his athleticism. He's starting to fit in a little bit more with the team. He just seems more comfortable out there in general.
100%. And notice in parts of the game late where, because which way Izzo tilts in a game where he's got a lead and it's getting late, he's going to tilt defense first, right?
Yeah.
You saw Divine as the 2 because you talk about Trey Fort getting more minutes than Kerr. Well, when it was winning time, there was a lot of Divine out there. So he's earning trust at that end. I saw a number. I haven't verified this, but anecdotally, it felt accurate to me. If this is right, Divine started the year off missing his first 8 3 attempts. Over the last, I think it's 3 games, he's 5 for 6. That feels right to me. The one he took and hit was pure.
Yeah,
wide open.
Really good.
You got to be able to hit those shots. But we talked about it the last game, right? He is any concerns anybody had with him as a shooter based on what he did at Miami last year. It's clear to me that was a function of a game just being a little too fast for an 18-year-old at that level. And he's past that now. That shot looks great. And I'm totally happy. I don't want him, this goes for the entire team. I don't want him trying to manufacture threes, jacking, forcing stuff. But if it's open, like the one he took tonight, absolutely he needs to shoot that. And he should have confidence in himself, and the team, I'm sure, has confidence in him based on what we're seeing. That's a good-looking stroke.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to well, I mean, during Moneyball, it looked good too. I mean, it looked like a really nice pure shot. But, it felt like you didn't want to see him shoot ever again because they just were so off. And I feel like, maybe that's the thing with Scott too. At some point, he's going to get that dialed in,
Oh
and then
yeah.
it's going to be,
You don't
that's what he
have the
was. He was a shooter before, right? In high
absolutely. You
school.
don't have the reputation that Jordan Scott had and in high school and think that it's going to continue to be a problem. There's going to come a time when it's going to slow down enough for him that he's going to start hitting those shots. I have no doubt about it. And he didn't play much tonight, but I love what Michigan State has been getting him in kind of the grit areas, defense, deflecting balls with all that length, staying solid, guarding guys, giving them a little bit of rebounding, and just a lot of hustle plays.
Yeah.
It's going to come for him. If that's the part of the game he's struggling in, he's going to be just fine because that part's going to come, the skill stuff. It's why they recruited him.
Yeah, the great thing about it too is right now they don't need it shooting. Like
right
at the beginning of the season, you're like, ugh, they could really use some shit. And now it seems like that's sort of figured. It's kind of figured itself out. So I think we're okay. Let him come along. All right, so let's get on here and go to the Brothers Just Do Gutters, the player that need to keep the gutters. Okay, so I don't know. I know you went and saw the reason we had delayed is because you had to check out the Christmas lights in Detroit, and you said it was pretty amazing. So where is that? You said it was Pine Knob. Is that right?
Clarkston, to be specific, which is a long way from Detroit. Yeah. Okay. Pine Knob does this. I think this is the second year they do this holiday lights thing. And I had my mother-in-law here, so we decided to do it because the Detroit Zoo light setup is not actually open in November on Thursdays. They're only Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we went, and this is a drive-through thing at Pine Knob, and yeah, it was really good.
So anyway, we've had a decent amount of snow up here. I got through the kind of a wintry mixed rain and snow to get up to our place and had Thanksgiving up here with my parents. So again, hence the mobile studio. But the nice thing is we had all to get gutters taken care of. We didn't have to worry about that sort of thing. Make sure you're the same way. Make sure you don't have to worry about your gutters. Make sure they're functioning properly. It's still time to have them come out and take care of things. Because I'm not sure if Rod has finished cleaning his leaves. I know he said he was going to wait till all the leaves are down. But, I already know the answer to that.
And we're looking at snowfall this weekend. I don't feel good about that decision making right now.
You may be raking those leaves in
I live in an area where you will feel the peer pressure.
Yes.
If you don't take care of that. So,
well, if you feel the peer pressure because you got some problems with your gutters, make sure you have the Brothers Just Do Gutters take care of it. They do fantastic work. You get 10% off. You mentioned Final Four when you go to our support page, tffinots.com/support. There you can either hold a Greg or Kurt, wherever you are in the state of Michigan. They can come out and take care of things. They'll get an estimate for you, whether it's your home or your business. They will take care of whatever needs to be done. Again, great pricing. They'll get the ladders so you don't have to. They'll clean out the gutters in this ice cold water and you don't have to worry about it. Have them take care of it. You'll be glad you did. All right. So the player that Michigan State had to keep in the gutter was Caleb Wilson. Not any surprise since he's potential, top 5 draft pick. He finished with 18 points, 6 for 13 from the field, 0 for 3 from 3-point range, 6 for 7 from the line, had 7 rebounds, 1 of them offensive, an assist, 2 turnovers, a couple steals, no blocks. So what do you think?
Well, I think this. You certainly didn't shut him down.
No.
But I didn't believe that was going to happen. So I think when you're talking about players at this level, what you want to do is 2 things. You want to make them inefficient compared to where they normally are, and you'll take it as a win if you keep them under what they average. I will admit, the first 6 minutes or so of this game, it was looking like Caleb Wilson might be ready to bust a 40 on Michigan State. I think he had 10 by 6 minutes in.
Or 8 or something. But yeah, it was
from that point forward, though. I think we were talking before we got on the air. Michigan State made life very difficult on Caleb Wilson. This is going to be one of those games, in fact, that I suspect in March, if he matures the way I would kind of expect him to over the course of the year, that he and his coach, Hubert Davis, will look back at and say, that was one that we learned some things. We got taught some lessons. And you didn't shut him down, but I don't think you're going to shut that guy down. So can you keep him controlled? Well, they did that. He came in averaging 20 and 10. He had 18 and 7. Okay. Yep. You held him under. He was 6 for 13 from the floor. That's not horrible, but that's not what he's capable of doing. I mean, Jesus, we saw what he had 4 dunks in this game, so 4 or 5. So what he's capable of doing from the floor, and they limited him there. And he came in averaging 8 free throw attempts a game. He got 7. He was 6 for 7. So maybe you'd say marginally below what he normally does, but I think especially a game like that where if I was Carolina and I was in a tight game, but a game that I couldn't quite get over the hump, I was behind the whole second half, I probably would be thinking, we got to get the ball to our most talented guy.
Yeah.
And I think they tried. I just don't think Michigan State let them get very far with that. So I'm hard to say you kept them in the gutter, but Michigan State did what they had to do. A lot of credit to Carson Cooper. He was really good, but he had help, literal and figurative, from a lot of other guys.
Yeah. Well, I think so you'd probably say some drips got through, partly stopped, but but it kept it manageable. That seemed to be what the consensus was. Not had a lot of people voting. We'll see how we can get the polls going a little bit more in the future. Someone actually thought they kept him in the gutter. So, which I guess it just depends on if you think
it depends. This stuff is all subjective.
Really?
Sense, really? Yeah, I think so. I think that's subjective. This is all subjective.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But it's there's a way of looking at this where you could conclude that. I'll just say I was pretty happy with the job they did.
Yep. All right. So that moves us on to Who Cleans the Glass Best, brought to you by the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. It is wintry out, but just a reminder that you can, Rod's groaning not because of the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids, just to be clear.
Let's make that clear.
He's hyper competitive on this challenge.
Through the advertising segment and then stop.
Okay. Then I'll let you. Yeah. Okay. It sounds good. So contact Troy and his team. They can come out and take care of your windows. They can also take care of not only exterior windows, but the interiors. They will get on ladders, much like the brothers just do gutters. They'll get on ladders so you don't have to, even in this cruddy weather. They'll get up there and clean those things off. They'll also wash your house, which is a good time to get your house washed. If you're anywhere within spitting distance of Greater Grand Rapids, and boy, with the winds of 60-mile-an-hour winds we had yesterday, they had like 39-foot waves in Lake Michigan.
Wow.
So spitting distance in Grand Rapids is a long ways. So, if you think you're close, just go ahead and give Troy and his team a call. You can get them, of course, at our support page at tffinots.com/support. 15% off if you mention Final Four when you get your estimate. And Troy's a great guy, so he'll take care of you. All right. So the rebounding challenge, it is now tied 3-3 because I won this time because I had Kohler, and pretty much as long as you had Kohler, you couldn't have beat me. The best you could have done is tie, and that's assuming I didn't take anyone else or like pick Nick Sanders or something like that. So Kohler had 11, Carr had 4, which gave me 15. You had Cooper with 6 and Ward with 2. So not even really close. It was kind of over by about 7 minutes into the second half.
Hence my groaning.
You're groaning. Yeah.
Jax was back on track in this one.
Yeah. What's funny is I was watching the game and I didn't think he had that many rebounds. It's so dumb. I kept thinking that Cooper had a lot of rebounds, and I was surprised.
I looked at the box score fairly late when it felt like Michigan State had it under control, and I was surprised Jax had that many. But yeah, he clearly dominated. It didn't feel that way to me watching it, but obviously that was an erroneous impression.
Well, you must have had the same thing. And I do enjoy the games now where you get near the end of the game and then I actually care what the rebounding challenge is. That means the game's safely in hand, which has been nice. Just like we were going crazy, grinding right through the end of the Champions Classic and at Madison Square Garden, the guy behind us was trying to figure out, why do you guys care so much? You're up 20. We're like, well, we have a side bet kind of going. So anyway, so I tie it up. So I avoid potentially the basketball in my head. So we're going to just, go to the Slido poll now. You can vote for who you think the best player of the game is for Michigan State. So go there just now and get votes. Votes look like they're coming in. So I'll move on then to the 5 keys of the game brought to you by Nudge Printing. And they had the drawing for the Tom frickin' Izzo free drawing at nudgeprinting.com/win, which you can head there. We're going to have a new competition, I believe, next month. I'll talk to Gabe and find out what it's for. But we'll announce that, I guess, probably before the Iowa game, that pregame. But anyway, you can go to nudgeprinting.com/win. You can see our stuff. You want to buy our stuff, which are all the great, same high quality, like apparel that Nudge always has, but has our logo on it. But there'll also be a drawing for free if you just enter your email address. It's real easy. And the winner was Mac. Oh boy, now I forget. Not Mac Weber, I think. I just said it escapes my mind now what his name is. Yeah, Mac Weber. I had it right. So congratulations, Mac. In the drawing, there are a ton of people who entered, which is really kind of cool. So I think Gabe's going to plan doing this for a couple times. We'll see how it goes. So we'll announce the next one, and I'm not sure what the prize will be, so I'll talk to him and find out what it is. But you can head over to Nudge Printing. Black Friday sale right now. Get all your stuff, all your Spartan stuff from all your Spartan relatives, friends, family, whoever. You can go there. Get the shipping's flat, like $7. It's really cheap. Get all your stuff right now, and that's what I'm wearing right now is my Nudge hoodie, which is super comfortable. This is what I wear for the whiteouts. So go with there today. You'll be glad you did. Again, nudgeprinting.com. 20% off. You mentioned a new coupon code, which is TIFNOTS, says TFF, and just enter that at checkout. All right. So the first key of the game was rebounding. And for rebounding, Michigan State had the overall edge, 37-30. They had 12 offensive rebounds. North Carolina had 12 offensive rebounds. That gave Michigan State a 41.3% offensive rebounding percentage, and Nebraska, North Carolina was 35.3. So, not a great job on the defensive boards for Michigan State, and it was actually a little bit. They're both about 40% for a while there. Then North Carolina had a bunch of misses at the end of the game, but anyway, pretty good effort for Michigan State. I don't think there was a huge edge one way or the other on this.
Well.
Did I not look at second chance points? Maybe I should do that.
I'm going to disagree with you on that front. Michigan State had a 12-6 advantage in second chance points.
So
neither one of them were tremendously efficient in converting those offensive rebounds into second chances. But I think the first half, North Carolina had a 40% offensive rebounding rate, which is really good. But Michigan State was at 50.
Yeah.
And the second half, both teams got better in terms of their defensive rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, if you looked at the numbers, North Carolina is a good rebounding team, offensively and defensively. They came in top 60 in both. But Michigan State has been elite or near elite on both ends. And we had said in this kind of matchup, if you're Michigan State, you look at that and you know that the number they've run up is real because you've played two high major opponents that are, big and athletic and everything. So it's not like MSU was doing it against tomato cans. They played two SEC teams.
Yeah.
So you would say, well, Michigan State should carve out an edge. Doesn't have to mean it's crush them. You'd love to see that, but they should have an edge. They had an edge. They had an edge in second chance points. They had an edge, whatever it was, 6% in rebounding rate. That's a win.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a win. And they continue to ring up these 40% plus offensive rebounding rates.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. I mean, that is really, really good stuff. I have to believe because Big Ten teams tends to be, generally speaking, more of a focus on rebounding than in some other leagues, I think. And I got to believe that it's going to come down at least a little bit. But right now, man, Michigan State is rebounding the hell out of the ball on the offensive end.
Yeah, they're doing these are not, as you said, they're not tomato cans. These are real teams. You got three high major teams.
They played seven. They played 7 games total, and 3 of them were against Arkansas, Kentucky, and North Carolina. Michigan State's numbers are earned. They are legit. Yeah.
I was actually just trying to look up to see what they did for offensive rebounding rates. So against Kentucky, they were 31%. So that was the one that was
weak. Yeah.
That was the weakest one. But Arkansas was almost 50.
Right?
It's like 48.7%.
I thought it was over 50%.
I know that's what the Bartovic says. So I don't know.
All right.
We'll see. But either way, really good. All right. So the second The second key to the game was the transition game. So Michigan State actually was at a deficit here. It was 11-16 edge for North Carolina. But I felt like Michigan State got enough. They certainly got enough done. It wasn't a big enough edge that really made a difference. There was some turnover issue too, I think, with some of those.
There
from
were,
North Carolina.
and I got to tell you, there's another one of those games. I know people probably get tired of hearing me complain about it, but to me, Michigan State made more of an impact than that number suggests. And so there could be plays. Like, I'll give you an example of what almost certainly did not count as a transition basket, but in my mind should. There was a play, it was in the first half, where Michigan State inbounds the ball. Carolina's getting back, but Fears doesn't break stride. He's going full tilt. He's not walking. He drives the ball maybe to just top of the key, so between the top of the key and the free throw line. And the defense, they ran it back. Jimmy Jackson called it.
Yeah,
perfect.
right. Yeah.
North Carolina, all the defenders were just below the free throw line. And Jeremy pitches it back to Jackson Kohler, who was the trailer, because he's the guy who inbounded, and Jackson hits a three. Now, the play never stops. Michigan State is running, not walking. Those are transition points to me. They don't count as it.
Okay, well,
but they are. And so I'll give North Carolina this. North Carolina always runs. We talked about this, just like Michigan State does. But I did not believe, and I still don't believe, this is a high-level transition team by North Carolina standards. Two reasons for that. One, Wilson is unbelievable, but beyond him, they don't have maybe the wing athletes, at least until Seth Trimble gets back. He is that. But they don't have the kind of wing athletes you typically expect from North Carolina, maybe. And they definitely don't have the kind of point guard. When I think about North Carolina transition, I think about Kenny Smith. I think about Ray Felton. Guys like that. They're not there. Whereas Michigan State has its guy like that in Jeremy Fears. So I still believe over the long run, Michigan State's the better transition team. But in fast break points, they weren't tonight. And honestly, even though I think the fast break point totals they don't capture the reality of it fully in this game, it would be hard to say that Michigan State had an advantage over Carolina. Yeah, right. But be that as it may.
Yeah, it certainly didn't affect things clearly. I mean, that was pretty obvious. So the third key to the game was fouling. This is interesting. So Michigan State just with 9 free throws. North Carolina had 17, and they definitely got a lot of those in the second half. I'd have to look to see what the splits are, but but it was not a huge problem for Michigan State. I think we were worried about that, and that did not materialize.
Plus, what was it? +5, I guess, and made free throws, 12-7, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's not a big enough edge for it to matter for North Carolina. You're right. We were worried about that because Carolina has drawn a lot of fouls, and you see why. When you've got Wilson alone is going to be a problem. At that size, with that kind of explosive athleticism, he's going to create havoc. Yeah. And they've got some other guys who can get themselves to the line as well. All true. But they've also done a good job of defending without fouling. And we saw that in this game, but not to the degree it would have had to have happened for it to matter. And I give credit to Michigan State as well, because honestly, what did they attempt? 17 free throws? Yeah. That's not bad at all. That's not even an average game. I'm talking about a course across the spectrum of college basketball.
Right, usually 20 plus. Right,
yeah, exactly, like 21, something like that. So 17 is below average. So MSU did what they had to do. And MSU was 7 for 9 on the ones they did get. Right. And Carolina was 12 for 17, which isn't horrible, but it's not 16 for 17, Well,
that's their average too, 70%.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So it ended up not mattering, and that was all that really was important about that, is that North Carolina did not have the kind of edge that might have been a problem.
And I think, the thing, you worry about fouling could be a reflection too of aggression, certainly from Michigan State's standpoint. Only get 9 free throws is we definitely want more, especially when they're starting to shoot them a little bit better. But they scored 46 points in the paint to North Carolina's 34. So it wasn't for lack of going inside and actually
No, not at all.
mixing
It's
up.
just
So
Carolina, right? Carolina has been successful at defending without fouling. So part of that, and you saw this in the St. Bonaventure game, and I think we might have talked about it too. They're not an elite shot blocking team, but they
Right.
have been. They came into this game the number 1 team in the country against twos. Right? I believe that was
now they're
correct.
number 2.
Yeah. So their size, even though they're not necessarily getting blocked shots, their size is clearly having an impact, both in terms of altering shots and dissuading shots from being taken. Michigan State handled that, I thought, very, very well on balance.
Well, the fourth key to the game was the bigs. And, I think we've kind of talked about this quite a bit, but Michigan State was able to handle the bigs for North Carolina and at least not let them totally run roughshod. I mean, they got their work done, both Vesser and Wilson, but they weren't dominant to the point where it caused real problems. And Michigan State was able to get their bigs were able to get stuff done the other way too.
So I'm adding it up. The 5 big men that they played had 40 points, 13, 14, 16 rebounds. So 40 and 16. The 4 bigs Michigan State played, 24 and 11, had 35 points and 19 rebounds. That's essentially a push.
Yeah.
And if you're North Carolina, you had to win that matchup decisively because you knew, especially with Trimble out, your guards were not going to give you what Michigan State is going to get from theirs. You had your best players are in your front court. You had to win that decisively. You did not. You outscored MSU's group by 5, but you also got out-rebounded.
Yeah.
That's a big win for Michigan State. And a huge key to this game that for all the things their guys did, they usually do more. And Michigan State limited them. And then at the other end, Michigan State got a lot done. Carson Cooper having, I think, one of his best games in a Michigan State uniform in the totality of it, even with that missed dunk. And all Jackson Kohler does is put up a double-double. And, oh, by the way, all Cam Ward does is go to work. What do you have, 9 and 2? Yeah, I mean, this is and Jesse barely played, but hats off. I mean, Michigan State's bigs were outstanding.
Yep. And so the fifth and final key is Carr. And I mentioned just to review real quick. So Carr for the game finished with 8 points. He's 4 for 10 from the field, misses 1 3-point attempt, 4 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, had a block, a steal, no assists, no turnovers, but played 36 minutes.
One of those offensive rebounds was very big, though. It was he scored 6 points right out of the chute, and then didn't score again until that play, which was a big one for keeping momentum. It was a missed shot. He swept in out of nowhere and dunked it.
Yeah.
I had said, I think in high-level games, oftentimes you need that, you need that guy who can make those 95th percentile plays to make them in order to win. And I was feeling very good about that call in the first 5 or 6 minutes because Cohen Carr did that. His first 5 or 6 minutes were everything you wanted. He was aggressive. I think gave Michigan State a sense of momentum. I mentioned that Trey Fort 3 to open the scoring. But after that, it was Cohen's plays that allowed you to really settle in like, okay, there was that stretch where he and Wilson were kind of going tit for tat.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Explosive plays at the rim. And like, okay, they've got a guy, we've got a guy, right? And that allows you to settle in and maybe grow a little bit of confidence into the game. And then, he didn't do anything offensively. Now, I think he did some things defensively, but they didn't need him to have that A game offensively. That's clear. They won decisively and only got 8 points out of him, below average for him. I still feel that is something that Michigan State and Cohen need to unlock, though. He needs to look at those first 5 minutes as the blueprint and say, you can do this much more often. You can much more consistently be this guy. Now, to his credit, I didn't think he forced anything. You said he only went 4 for 10 from the floor. Some of that was because he was trying to challenge North Carolina at the rim, and a few times
that one blocked.
He got turned back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That'll happen. But I'm okay with him doing that because, as I was saying earlier, he's a guy that you want trying to make those plays because somebody's got to do it. You can't just live on the perimeter against that size all game long. Somebody's got to do it. You want to make sure it's the right guys. So in this case, it's Cohen, it's Carson, it's Cam Ward. You want going at them. So I'm okay with that. But he's just got to find – they need to get to that point where I think it's going to matter where they know going in, okay, you're going to get 14 out of Cohen, not 9 or 10.
Yeah.
You know, because he's worth – when he's scoring, we all know how it comes, right? They're highlight reel plays. You have a couple more of those every game. What that does for momentum in the building, come on.
Yeah.
So it didn't unfold the way I thought it might have to in order for Michigan State to win. But that doesn't mean that that's not going to be something that is an issue, that they need more from him going forward, in my opinion. And I'm sure he and Tom Izzo feel that way. I'm positive.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. All right, so again, the voting is open for player of the game, and let's see.
This should not be close, by the way.
Well, it is, but I will.
Really?
Yes, but let me preface that by saying that I think that's my fault.
How's that?
So, well, it's because I think people were voting who were watching the video from the last show. Because I opened the voting early in order to be available for the game, but I opened it like a day. And so I think what happened, so Jackson Kohler and Jeremy Fears tied with Divine Ugochukwu. But I think that those were, I know a lot of those votes were from, and now Jeremy Fears has actually moved ahead. Some people have changed their votes, probably realizing that it was they had voted last time. So now actually Jeremy Fears is number one. And I don't think there's much question that yeah. I mean,
Carson Cooper played very well. Jackson Kohler had a double-double. Those things are all great. This should be unanimous.
Yeah.
Jeremy Fears was dominant in that game.
Yeah, I know what more to say, except he's turned into the player that we thought he would turn into. And there's
I think even better than that. I'm just speaking for myself, and you've been
leading the hype train the whole time. So yeah, it's from you.
But look, 8 for 10 from the floor, and those aren't with a bunch of layups.
Right.
That's the part that I'm saying he's demonstrated more than once this year. If they need him to provide more scoring, he's proving capable of doing that. You know, it's not going to be an every game thing, but if they need it, and they needed it today from him, they needed somebody to hit those jumpers. And he's providing it. And that's the thing. The rest of it, the playmaking, the defense, the leadership, all that is right where I thought it would be. But in terms of his own offense, he is better than I think almost anybody outside of that team probably expected from him thus far. And if it continues like this, yeah, like the great Casey Jacobson said, you got to start thinking about him as an All-American. That's not hyperbolic. That's reality.
And I will say too, and I know we talked this already before a couple shows ago, but I'm really, really becoming more and more convinced that injury to his leg was really affecting his game more than I think
so
we
too.
Appreciated. I mean, I
think so too.
I just don't think we had an idea that it was as critical to sort of his game, which is a kind of a dumb thing to say, but he looked like he's moving okay, yes. But now he's just looks more fluid. And
I agree with you. But, it's also, too, there's some of it where it's a confidence thing, right? And if your confidence is increased in terms of your physicality, that is probably going to bleed through to your performance as well. It usually works that way. And so even if we could look at it and say, well, he's still fast, he can still jump. Forget the fact that he's made improvements in those areas this year versus last as well. But if you're just still kind of in the back of your mind, you have some lingering doubt, or you're just not as fully confident in your body as you once were, that will have impact. And look, I think he had a really good season last year, all things considered. I really do. We all know it. He was a critically important part of that team.
Yeah.
But this is another level. This is another level.
So I'll have to say we have had so many comments that I cannot find what I was looking for. I can't even scroll fast enough to get through all the comments. So, but somebody did comment earlier too about the floor, and we talked about this last game. That floor was a mess, and that was the one thing about this tournament that was, I just don't understand. They can't let that happen, because that was just. I'm so glad no one got injured. Which also reminds me, I don't remember when I was watching. I never noticed that Cam Ward hurt his wrist, but I know they reported that he hurt him and went into the locker room, I think. But did they even talk about that during the?
No, and he played, so I don't.
He came back and played the second half and seemed fine, but I mean,
yeah, I don't think there's any big deal. But yeah,
Graham Couch mentioned that he winced every time he was shooting, like in the shoot around before the second half. But I don't know, he looked fine after that.
He got a lot done in the second half. I know that.
he looked okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts about this? I mean, I think, super excited the fact that Michigan State 7-0. You don't want to look too far ahead, but you had mentioned earlier, before this whole non-conference season really had started, I think probably after the Colgate game, that when Michigan State looks good in the Champions Classic, plays well, they tend to have a really good year. I don't think either of us saw this coming. I certainly didn't expect them to look dominant against Kentucky and North Carolina, and actually Arkansas was kind of a close-ish game, I guess, but they really haven't had any close games. I mean, they thought certainly this game, we were up 5 at halftime. You expected it to be kind of a close game, and then Michigan just pulled away, and it was not really. There wasn't a lot of drama at the end of the game, so that'll happen at some point for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah, coming up soon. Because the Big Ten is going to be a war. I mean, there's a lot of capable teams in this league. They're starting with what we're going to see next week. But look, I think what we couldn't have foreseen is the fact that you just expect there will be more unevenness at this time of year, because there almost always is from a Michigan State team. Right. And, you don't panic. You expect it. Well, we're not seeing it. We're not seeing that unevenness. This team is playing an extremely mature brand of basketball thus far. Really mature. So that's what's been most impressive to me. One other thing I wanted to mention we really didn't talk about on kind of a team basis. Michigan State now for the third time this year eclipsed the 40% mark from three. I didn't look on KenPom to see where they are in three-point shooting nationally.
I can tell you.
Where are they?
They're 150th right now.
So they're in the top half nationally.
Yep. After being 358th or something out of 362 a couple weeks ago.
But here's what I liked. What I liked more than the Kentucky game or the East Carolina game. I like that 10 number, the attempts. Now, that's a little extreme. I'm fine with 15, 16, 17 attempts. I don't love 26, 27, 28.
Right.
For a couple reasons. One, I don't think that's in this team's best interest in the long run to be taking that many threes. But two, it also means, as we've talked about at times this year, if you're taking that many, you're probably not attacking the basket enough. You're probably not getting the ball into the post enough. You're probably not drawing enough fouls. I think for this team, the way I think it needs to play, I'm much more in favor of a little more muted kind of. Now you can't. The other thing, which is absolutely true, is it's foolish to go into a game and saying, guys, we can't take any more than 16 threes, because the way the game evolves is going to dictate that, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So I'm not that stupid, but I do think in general, I was happier with the shot selection in this game because they turned down a lot of threes that could have been taken in this game. They showed a little more patience. I thought everyone they did take was great. I don't remember any forced ones. Maybe Trey had one.
Trey, yeah.
But by and large, the shot selection was great. There weren't a lot of them there. So they didn't shoot a lot. And that's fine. That's fantastic, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So very happy about that. Obviously, also happy about the efficiency. They've already eclipsed what last season's team did in terms of number of games where they shot 40% or better as a team. Right. They're at 3, 7 games in.
That's not bad. Now you're almost half
not
the games.
Bad.
You're shooting over 40%.
Not bad at all.
That seems
not
pretty good. Yeah.
So I think it is fair to say, does this team have a very legitimate shot at being better from 3 than they were last season? Yeah, for sure. Because it's not fluky. The guys that are hitting them are guys that you believe in as shooters, you know?
Right.
And I think they can get better too. We talk about Jordan Scott's going to hit shots at some point. I think that'll probably happen at some point this year. Trey Fort, I think, can find another gear as a shooter. You know, and then other guys, I mean, Fears, Kohler, Kerr, those guys are shooting the way you kind of thought they could or better.
Yeah.
And Divine as well.
Yeah, no, they're going to be a harder and harder team to guard in some respects because, you know, you definitely want to protect the interior, but you have Kohler who's getting, I don't want to say he's automatic, but you feel very confident in hitting that trailing 3. Right?
What did he go today?
I think it was 2 for 2, wasn't he?
2 for 4.
2 for 4. Okay.
So he's not quite because he was just under 50% coming in. So he's
still
knocking at the door. He's in the high 40s. He's probably like 4. I'm not looking at the number, but he's got to be like 47, 48%.
Probably, sure.
So knocking on the door 50% on good volume now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of hard to argue with.
No, it is. And, you know, we were talking that the 4 big gauntlet games in the non-conference, you got Arkansas, Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina. You've gotten 3 of them already.
Yep. It's already a win in that sense.
Right.
But man, look,
if you take Duke, if you take Duke, you're in 1 seed territory.
I think they already are. I mean,
well,
they're
probably right, but
they've done enough that if they take care of business in the Big Ten, if they are a top 2 team in this league, they've done enough that they would be in, barring a slip against somebody else. But if they take care of business in the league, they'll be in that conversation. I have no doubt about that now, given how things are going nationally. I mean, the SEC, in my opinion, does not have a team, not a single team right now that I think is a legit national title contender. Not one.
Right.
The Big Ten has at least 3 that I've seen. What does the ACC have? 1? Duke?
Yeah.
Maybe you could squint and see Louisville. Big 12? I don't know. Houston doesn't look that way to me. Not yet.
Arizona, I guess, right now.
Arizona for sure. Arizona's a good call. Iowa State, maybe. But not a lot of other teams. So if you take care of business in this Big Ten with what you've already done, you know, assuming all 3 of these teams go on to have the years I think they will, where they're at least going to be tournament teams and solid rankings, et cetera, solid metrics, that is. You've already done enough, but man, why not get greedy? Why not?
Yeah, I am now.
In your building, crowd is going to be hyped on a Saturday afternoon. There is no reason in the world to look at that game against Duke and think, oh, we got to find a way to steal one. Steal what? That's our game. That's our building. I think right now, I've seen Duke play. Duke's good. I think Michigan State at home, 0 reason you should not think will have every opportunity to win that game.
Yeah.
And if they do that, well, then there's nobody that can argue against the idea of where Michigan State is in the national pecking order this year. They're right there with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, get greedy. But, of course, first they got to take care of Iowa.
Yeah, which is, obviously super important because that starts the Big Ten play, right? And it's a good team that's going to be cause some problems in a totally different way than what they faced yet this year.
none of this non-conference stuff matters, at least not as much as it should, if you don't take care of business in the league. So you start with Iowa at home. I think it's an improved team. I mean, we're going to talk about it more, obviously, in the next few days, but it's an improved team. But that's a team you ought to beat at home. Iowa hasn't seen anything like what this Michigan State team will present in terms of its physical challenges yet. And so we'll see how that all unfolds. But, yeah, you got to take care of business one at a time. Iowa's up next. Then you can think about Duke.
Right. All right. Well, I think we'll close it there. We've gone a long time. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. You drive home safely if you're not yet home, or make it back through the airports, because that's sometimes an adventure. And then it looks like, I think Nudge is, so you can go to nudgeprinting.com/win, and you can enter for the new drawing, which starts, I suppose the clock starts whenever Gabe gets it started, but probably it would start tonight, is my hunch. So that will be for a Gruff Sparty backpack, I think is what it was. I'll have it up, and we'll announce for sure at the next pregame for the Iowa. Yes, a Gruff Sparty North Face backpack. Oh, those are really nice. So you can head on over and check that out. That'd be pretty awesome. So go to nudgeprinting.com/win to have an opportunity to win that for free. Enter today, and that'll close at the end of December. So after Christmas, and of course get your Black Friday shopping at Nudge Printing. Head over to Brothers Just Your Gutters and the Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids. Have them take care of your house stuff, which is not sexy, but needs to be done and keeps you safe by staying out of trouble and off those ladders. So until we talk about the Iowa game, until then, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go green.